times grilled Brendan on that perspective of it, but he is still kind of a novice with this. How long have you been a paranormal investigator in Australia?
Myself, well, as of January, I'll be 39 years in the field. I did
Wow.
my first investigation when I was 19. Or I always say attempted investigation because it sort of went sideways. It was a bit of a debacle, but yeah, 39 years as of January, and still learning, still loving it, and still trying to work the whole bloody thing out.
You find yourself at 19, so I'm only guessing that this was prior to the explosion of the television shows. Would that be correct?
Oh, absolutely. But before everything, before the internet, before the whole deal, there was some television, specials that would come up about, certain different things. We'd watch them. I'd read everything I could. I'd see everything, any articles I found in newspapers, magazines, anything I could get my hands on, watch the movies, that sort of stuff. Since I was a young kid, before I could even remember, I had this interest, and a lot of it was we learned by watching and reading, and I learned by sending letters to people, and sometimes you get a reply, sometimes you wouldn't. What do I do? How do I do things? And the first investigation, we had a cassette recorder, and we had the old VHS cameras.
Yeah, the big buggers.
It wasn't night vision, it was nothing. So all we got was black, and it was a try, and from there we built and read more, and I always say there's that MacGyver effect, where you before all the gadgets were made, we were learning to work out how we could do things, and a lot of it was harking back to the Victorian era, where the old investigators would use bells on doorknobs and talcum powder on the floor and things like that. That's the sort of tripwires, and that's the sort of stuff we were playing with back then. So that's real old school.
But that's the fun part to it, is going outside of that comfort zone, or going outside of being boxed in with this particular device that everyone uses. Like, no, let's explore all the possibilities, because the spirits they're exploring all of this for the first time. So I think it's really, really unique to have that, that kind of spot on the moment. What am I going to put together here to make this connection happen? And that's brilliant to it. Ken, we are live now. Is that correct? We're back.
There was absolutely no reason why we weren't live, but Bill just rebooted. We just had to get the jumper cables put on. That's all.
So he deleted it and then he re-added it back in. So okay,
yeah,
so we're up and running.
The viewership just spiked, so I guess we're okay.
All right. Well, then we'll have to start the show over, guys. We won't go through all that.
We won't do that. Okay, Audrey. Yeah, we did introduce the guests. This is Bill Tabone and Brendan Monk from Australia. Okay, it wasn't on air for 15 minutes. Oh my goodness gracious! I don't know why. I blame it all on KGRA. Take that. All right, but we're good now. Here we go. Yes. Just toss a little holy water on the.
That's it.
I guess what we can do is once the show is over with, then we can steal the streaming from KGRA and then put it onto the YouTube channel, so you guys will get to see the first 15 minutes, which were exciting, because the first thing we did, we had a bodybuilding pose down between Bill and Brendan. You guys missed all that.
Yeah,
but we'll put that in post. Don't worry about it whatsoever.
Oh, geez.
All righty, then we're off and running.
All right, Ken.
All right, thank you, George. All right, so let's get into some of this right now. I mean, as far as background that you had, Bill, getting into this, can you tell us a little bit about your particular approach, your team's approach, what the various members of your team bring to the table, and pretty much your overall methodology as far as how you approach reports of paranormal activity, be they residential, a business, or a public place?
Okay. Well, basically, with the members and such, Amanda and myself were the co-founders, along with there was a couple other people that lasted a short time but decided to leave and move on to other things, which was great for them, But Amanda and I have been here at the APS for it's been around 15 years. Amanda is a medium. She's pretty strong medium, and she actually works on cold cases. That's her main priority at the moment. Well, for the last couple of years actually, but she works with us, obviously doing our thing as well. But we have different members. So we have investigators, people that, will go out in the field with us, or I'll send them out if I can't make it. I have researchers. One of my good buddies, part of the team, Bill up in Bendigo. He's like a fanatical researcher. He's great at what he does, and he tracks information down for me. And then we have other mediums, people that have that ability, but a lot of the tech stuff comes down to me. I tend to and my sort of second in charge, which is it'd be Tony or Ragnar, and they're the tech guys more than myself, I suppose. And we get out in the field, where the way we run things, the way we do things is, it depends on, if we're dealing with a historic location, we do our research as everyone else does, and we go in and we'll do our investigations and such like that. With a private case, especially when we're taking mediums in, I tend not to give the team or the people too much information, especially the mediums, or give them that the people are having some issues and we need to go and see what's going on. So especially with the mediums, so they go in there, they can pick up what they pick up, and then we'll have a debrief and we'll go from there. But how do we take on our cases? We get cases from everywhere. We get through our Facebook pages, through word of mouth, through our emails, through everything, and we have we vet, obviously, because everyone's busy, everyone has lives they have to live, and a lot of cases they just need to have someone to speak to. So we'll have an interview and we'll have a chat to them, and that sometimes is enough. But yeah, there is actually an interview process. So we have an initial interview over the phone. Then we have a face to face, and we'll have a look at the location if that's deemed necessary. If we think we've got something to deal with, we'll take it that next step and either go into an investigation or even if it's just sitting down and providing some counseling, some chat, have a chat to them, and go from there. I'll give you an example. We had a case just this week. I had to go out, and the lady has she has a guardian that looks after her. Yeah, everyone has got their own guardians. Well, where she used to live was right close to an old mental asylum, and she was actually having a lot of energy coming through there. So the guardian was getting quite aggressive, and she was getting a bit worried about that. But she's since moved, and everything's calmed down. But she's still experiencing a few things. So by the time we went in there and we done a bit of investigating, and we worked out that it was this guardian, and she was fine with that. But with everything else, you need to look at the background. So we look at the psychology of the person. So we do a course called the psychological first aid course. So it gives you, we're not doctors and such, but it gives us enough to identify if there's any sort of psychological issues. In this case, it wasn't, but you look at depression and you look at anxiety. So it's quite a big thing before we actually will do an investigation. As I suppose most of you guys will do the same sort of thing, just in different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of facets to investigation. There's the documentation, of course. There's the background research, and it also has spiritual and metaphysical sides to it too. In working with mediums, how does your group balance that off in terms of technology, documentation, and getting readings or what you glean from the mediums? Who goes first? Do you work together? How does that play out?
I like to have, well, as I said, we don't give the mediums anything while we're going into a private case. Let's talk about private cases. They walk in and they get a feel. They can walk around and feel, the the hot spots, where they feel there's a lot of energy, etc. What that energy is, and as you know, mediums and psychics, and we like to call them sensitives. They work in different ways. So some will see, some will hear, some will feel, some will see pictures, some will see clips. It depends. So what we do is we'll send them in. They can do what they do. I will usually have someone either filming them or monitoring, taking a recording of what they're saying. They'll come out, they'll tell us what they're feeling, or tell me what they're feeling, so I understand. And then we can go in with the rest of the team. Most of the time they will come in with us, and they sort of tend to sit at the background while we get some gear working. And the way what we do is we record what they say and what their feels are. Then we look at the evidence we're gathering, whether, for example, in the back room, I felt something, etc. And when we're down there, there's a temperature variance, there's an EMF variance. We catch an EVP, or we catch a light anomaly, or whatever. So we look at what we call points of verification. So if there's a temperature spike or drop, 1 point. If there's a light anomaly, another point. If there's so if we get 3 or 4 points of verification along with what the psychic has said in that area, it starts to build that picture of what there's possibly something going on. Then we can go from there and try to work out what it is. Personally, myself, with equipment, we use a lot of equipment on our tours and such. With investigations, I tend to use the basics. So we use the EMFs to do baseline readings, but it tends to be just recorders and cameras. So we're not focusing on flashing lights and buzzers. We're focusing on the environment and what's actually happening there. Now, you spoke about recording, the evidence, or keeping the evidence handling, I suppose we call it. We have a specific, routine for that. So, everything gets, loaded into a file for that case. We make a working file. We keep a copy of everything on a separate hard drive, or 2 separate hard drives, actually. And we have the file that we work with. So if we need to go back to any original files, they're always kept separate. And, if someone says, oh, well, this is, this bit of evidence interesting, where did you find it? We can actually pull out a separate copy of the original copy, and, we can show them that. And also, if something goes wrong, it's better to keep things on a separate hard drive.
Yeah.
So that's how we handle it.
Yeah, it's interesting how that dynamic works, with a lot of different groups bringing in, because I think psychics, it's fair to say that they bring a certain emotional content to it as well. Yeah. Because, certainly we can corroborate with names and dates.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for insight into,
the feeling, the
lives of these people, and how they live and so forth, it can be invaluable.
I suppose I'm lucky. My wife is sort of the head medium. Not because she's my wife, but she is really good at what she does, and she's very, she's been seeing spirits since she was 3 years old. And it's the accuracy. In most cases, there's a connection, that you can make. But Amanda, she got the nickname as being very raw. We call her the raw, because she writes as well. We call her the raw paranormal writer, because she tells it how it is. And if we walk into a place and there's nothing there, she's going to say, no, there's nothing here. She's not one of these ones to fluff around and get dramatic. She'll tell you how it is, and that's pretty much it. Right. Cuts out all the BS, which is what I really like.
Right. Now, when you go into these places, and Brendan, you can jump in here anytime. You're kind of my co-host right now.
Sorry, man.
That's so good.
I start talking. I get a bit excited.
That's so good.
No, we got to get Brendan wound up here. So, absolutely. This is a question both of you can answer. Anywhere all over the world. At one point, the background and the history of where I am in the Northeast, the first settlers here, and you have that kind of, the trauma and the hardships, and Australia at one point as a penal colony.
Absolutely.
When you visit these places, let's face it, a lot of them don't have happy endings.
No.
So
it's true.
you have that certain amount of negativity, you have that trauma, you have the trials and tribulations of all that.
Yeah.
How do you handle going to a place where you may have all of this in mind as far as the background, but you have to put that aside and not presuppose anything, or and just do your job as far as documentation, and not get squirrely because this was a place where people
Or
lost their
executed or
lives
something.
and
Yeah, exactly.
tragedies, and
Exactly.
it sounds like an easy thing to do, but it can be pretty daunting sometimes.
Absolutely. Brendan, I'll let you talk, mate, if you want. Sorry.
No, that's all
Sure.
good. Yeah. So, yes, sometimes, yeah, I'll have to learn more about the Aboriginal. I know the basics, sort of, but sometimes you have to ask the old elders or the Indigenous groups or something about what their take on things are and everything like that. So, yeah, because I know more probably, I guess, the English sort of British sort of
European.
traditional way, but yeah, it's always good to learn like the way what their beliefs were and what actually happened before we were here. So that's always interesting. Yeah, just trying to learn off the original people of the land. Yeah, what you can. So yeah, like Yowies and yeah, what sort of stuff.
Bunyips
be
and things like that.
difficult.
For sure. For sure.
How about you, Bill? How do you not, because when you're a neophyte, you first come into the field, all of these things can play on your mind. Experience
Yeah.
will help you with that, but how do you block all that out and go do your job?
Well, you said it, man. You said the big thing is experience. I think as you get, when they start in this field, they're all excited. They're all, we're all out there. I was the same, we're all excited, and you see that with, like, for example, as an example, you see that, like, people they have all this new equipment, and it's good stuff, but they want to buy everything, right? And that's the excitement. And going into a new place, it's an excitement, and they can be swayed by the histories and the stories. The way I look at it, and the way it works for me, is like you said. It's actually, how do you get your job done? It's to me, I look at it as a business. I look at it as a job. So, a doctor, when he's in the ER room, he's got a job to do, and he has to push everything out aside and focus on what he's doing. So
dispassionately, yeah,
exactly. So for us, as an example, Arrowdale Asylum, which is an asylum not far from us, about 4 hours drive from me. It's got a history. It's got there was good and bad happen there. And I spent a lot of time there. We spent a lot of weekends sleeping in there, doing stuff, doing investigating. And for me, it's, okay, we go in there and people are daunted, and they're all in awe of this place. This is the biggest asylum in the Southern Hemisphere at one stage. 63 buildings. It's massive. But for me, we walk in there and we have to have a plan. We have to have a focus on what we want to do. There's stories, yes, and great. But, one, as you gain experience, in a weekend, you can't investigate 63 buildings properly. You know what I mean? So that's the first point is, plan. You need to, with experience, you've learned to plan better. By planning better, you can go in and you can do your job, and the stories don't sway you in that if you focus on what your goal is. So yeah, for me, it's the experience. It's being experienced in the field and in investigating, and two, it's actually planning. So know what you want to do, or roughly what you want to do, or have a guide of what you want to do. Right. That can change. obviously be fluid in what you do, but that's how you get around the distraction of these stories.
All these things coming. Yeah. It's it's kind of like, you always like to have a plan, but like the boxer Mike Tyson said, everyone's got a plan when they get in the ring until they get punched in the mouth.
Until they get hit. Exactly.
And
absolutely.
Then everything
exactly.
goes sideways. So that's where experience and flexibility comes into play
Absolutely.
with a lot of those, because here's a
Yeah.
spoiler alert to everybody out in chat. All us experienced investigators, when we were newbies, we probably did more to scare the hell out of ourselves than anything out there. And then eventually,
absolutely.
you get going. To that end, Bill, I wanted to ask you, because this always fascinates me, because it's not something my particular group does ourselves, but you also do cleansings.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you about that. Is this from a spiritual bent, a religious bent, or is it somewhere in the middle
It's sort
of the cleansing?
It's in the middle, and it depends on the case as well. So it all comes as part of that sort of spiritual protection, spiritual cleansing, spiritual warfare sort of stuff. And there's, as you know, there's, you can go outside on the front lawn and ground yourself, and that's, but then you can go right through to the other end. There's scales on how intense these things get. So again, it depends on the case. But the way I do things, it's a little bit eclectic. It draws from a lot of different areas. I've had experience with American Indians. I've had experience with Aboriginals. I've had experience. I'm a Roman Catholic, so that's my base. My belief system is basically that anything that's trying to do good or trying to help will work together in some form. And it's so in some point it's from a spiritual point, other points it's from a religious, depending on the investigation. And sometimes it's just a matter of just teaching the person how to do a basic cleansing so that they can. The atmosphere is negative. There's not necessarily a bad spirit there, but maybe they had a trauma, or they're struggling somehow, and it attracts energy and attracts bad energy, and just how to cleanse the atmosphere. And then there's other times when they are affected, and we've all seen cases where people are they're scared. That creates energy as well. But when there's spirits involved, it's, again, you need to step it up a little bit, and you need to either help them cross over if they're for want of a better word, a positive spirit or not negative. You need to help them cross over, because they should be where they should be. They shouldn't be stuck on the earth plane. And then, when you're dealing with negative spirits, and, you step it up again, and you need to go into harder or more intense clearings and cleansings, depending. And then we also do, personally, I do like a healing as well. So I help people, and they, when they're feeling, drained or something, I, do a healing or cleansing on them. And, it depends. So each case is different. It's very hard to say this is how we should do things, because this is how we do everything all together. It's not. So it's same as investigating. Each case is set up and individualized depending on the circumstances.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I want to, before I jump to the next obvious question, I think that you can comment on this, both of you. I think a lot of it has to do with intention, and when you're administering to people, trying to get them to take back their space and empower them, because
absolutely. Yeah.
When you go into a location, I'm talking about not necessarily always a family environment, but most of the time, where there's children involved, and parents are very protective, and the anxiety is just ramped up. that
Absolutely.
we don't go in this room or we don't go in the basement, and you've got 5 rooms in your house you don't go in, and I mean you're paying the mortgage on this thing, and there's 5 rooms that you don't even go into. So I think the important thing a lot of times is to give them the tools necessary to not play the victim and
100%.
to empower themselves and claim their space back. Would you agree with that, Bill?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that is an essential part of what we do. So when we leave, helping someone, when we've done a case and a cleansing or whatever, well, for one, they know that we're not going to just go and never be seen again. We're always there. They can always contact us and ask for help or questions. But 2, when we do whatever cleansing we do or whatever we do, I usually get them involved. I usually get them to help, or at least watch. And I teach them, if we're using smudge a smudge stick, for example, I teach them how to use the smudge stick correctly, because it's not just blowing smoke around. As you said at the start, you have intention. There's intention, there's belief, there's faith. You need to believe and have faith in what you're doing, in the spiritual side of things. Because without that, what are you doing? Like, you're blowing smoke around and sprinkling water, whatever tool you're using, for example. But the idea is to empower them to take, like yourself said, is to learn how to look after their own home, their own place, their own person, and empower them. And that's a big part of what we do. All of us should be doing it.
Absolutely. Education and those type of things, because
100%.
I don't think we're the final word in anything. We just try to help make sense of things and give you 100%. Some tools to maybe, cope with it or handle it. And then after that, if you find your peace with it, that's fine. Brendan, I wanted to say, because the obvious question is going into any location, and you have, and I think we've talked about this before, if there's anything you particularly do to prepare yourself, maybe not, ritualistically, where we're standing out there lighting candles in front of somebody's house and they're looking out the window saying, oh my God, what am I getting myself into? But just that internal narrative that you have, I'm going into this place and it's not a nice place. It's got a bad history. So I just kind of have to ground myself, take a breath. In going in there, is there anything that you do consistently to just say, okay, let me get hold of myself here?
I usually I try and reach out peacefully and try and just be as respectful, I guess. Try and be try and be as most respectful as I can be. Because you don't know who it is until you get more communication going, and just talking to them like people, because they were once people, and
very important.
Have fun with them if you can, have a bit of fun, if they start joking around like you do yourself, Ken and Bill too, just have fun with them, when they start laughing. And they told, I was at the Kilmore jail the other day, and one of the child spirits in there asked me to jump. He said, I just get up and jump. Then I did a jump, and he's like, oh, that's how, and I was like, how is that? And he was like, oh, that's adequate. It's funny.
Yeah. Now, Bill, you have mediums that you work with, so I assume that they have maybe a different process. My process: do the background research, have an iced coffee and a donut, and that's my ritual for going in. I don't go much more than that. But I would imagine having mediums, I don't know, as a group, as a whole, how do you prep yourself? Is there a protection thing, or is it?
Well, for sure. Well, obviously we do the research. I do the research, or I have someone do the research. So we know. I always know what we're walking into. We're not just going to walk in blind. We've done interviews, etc. There's certain people, as I said, the mediums that don't really know, because I like them to just feel. But as a process before heading into a case, we're talking, it's like spiritual protection, or that sort of preparation before walking into a joint is. And again, I always say, one of the workshops I do is spiritual protection, and it's very personal. So what, to each person. So what I do is, I'm a Catholic, I'm a Christian. So I'll say a prayer, but I will also do a grounding. I'll ground myself. Now, if I have a group with us, a few of my guys, they all do their own thing, but I always do a grounding for everyone. I do it all together. And I always say, if during the investigation, if we're feeling maybe we're getting drained, or we're getting maybe, for want of a better word, attacked in some way, energetically, maybe, come out, let's do our protections again, let's rebuild them and go back in. It's like, retreat to live to fight the next battle. You know what I mean? Being overly dramatic, but that's how it sounds. And then, when we finish, because we all know how energy works, can attach to you. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a spirit, but negative energy can attach to you. And when we come out, we do a cleansing. So Brendan will know, even when I do my investigation tours at the end, I do a grounding for everyone. And some people they just feel it, and they can, it's just, wow, I feel great. Other people, it's just a set of movements, because you need to have that belief that it was going to work. I'll give you an example, really quick example. Sorry.
It worked really well with me when you did it with me and the group on the was it Carlton Trades Hall?
Trades Hall, yeah.
Trades Hall, yeah.
Yeah, you've seen it many times, Brendan. You know how it feels. You know it works, and but the whole thing is like, I'll give you a really quick example. We did a case a lot of years ago now, and I was trying out some new investigators, and these guys said they were experienced, and they may have been experienced. They may have been out on a lot of investigations, but this case was pretty bad. And we walked in there, and this poor girl, we're sitting in front of her, some of my team, myself, and her hair was getting pulled while we were watching. We could see her hair getting yanked. And so we did our little investigation, and it got to the point where this thing was not being really nice. So I ended up, I said, right, okay, you guys, I want some of you guys over there just doing whatever. I can't remember what I got them to do. And I took the two new guys with me. I said, you need to help me. I'm going to do a cleansing. I'm going to get rid of this. And one of them was on a camera because I wanted it filmed because it was quite intense. And I can't remember what the second one was doing. Anyway, we walked into the bedroom, and you could feel this place. It was vibrating. It was that intense. Now, the history of it's pretty bad, but we don't need to go into that. But this side table from this bed starts rocking sideways and moving forward. And I've gone, well, this is interesting. But as you do, you continue. You continue. You keep your metal. You keep your bottle. You don't panic. Well, these two, they took off running, and they ran out front. I finished the job, and I done the whole thing. I went out there, and there was these two guys. There was another couple of new guys. They were out there having a smoke and shaking like they were panicking. And I said, well, it's finished. It's done. We'll do a cleansing now. They were worried, so they were going to take something home. I said, we'll do a cleansing now. So I did a grounding, and I did a bit of a cleanse on them. Everyone went home. The next day, I couldn't get up, couldn't get out of bed. I felt like I had been hit with an axe, and my head was like, I don't know whether you ever had a migraine, but a migraine like 10 times. That's how I felt. My body was aching. Everything was hurt. We had a doctor come by. He's got a virus. You just need to drink plenty of water or whatever. It wasn't. It didn't feel like that. And I was in bed for 3 days. And eventually I got a friend of mine, because it's hard. Sometimes it's hard when you're close to people for them to do these things on you. So I got a friend of mine to come in who does healings and such. And he said I had gunk, like this black gunk, brownish black gunk on me that was from that investigation. And he cleaned it up. As soon as he did that, I was fine. Now, what happened, and I've thought about it afterwards, was when I done a grounding and cleanse on these guys, I didn't do myself. I left the place. So I left the place and I was contaminated. So it can affect you, and people don't realize that the energy can affect you, and it can knock you around really badly. So I'm always make sure going in we're protected, coming out we're protected. But then again, as I said, everyone does their own as well because it's very personal. So sorry, that was a bit of a long answer, but
I understand. Well, I am going to bring George back in here as we go to the top of the hour. I'll be back a little bit later. And I already have my first question because you talked about something I want to get into on the backside. So thank you, gentlemen. George, take it away.
thank you, Ken.
Bill, just look at Brandon.
Hello. Yes.
Those formative years, it's all of his hair is on top and none on the bottom. That'll flip, buddy. That'll flip. Give it some time.
He hasn't got the grey hairs yet, mate.
Not yet, but yeah, one day.
Not yet, buddy.
Will. Yeah.
Not yet.
Yeah.
I was looking
From the aspect. Go ahead.
Sorry. I was just saying I was looking at some old photos with my wife the other day, and when my youngest, my 15-year-old, he used to, because 15-year-old, they're all got attitude, and I said, you used to fall asleep on me once. He goes, oh yeah. And I found photos that he was just like a little baby asleep on me, and I looked at my beard and I said, geez, it wasn't even a grey hair. I said, see what you've done to me. Well, now he's 6'4" and he looks down on me. So, but you got to laugh. Things change.
Well, let me ask you about the evolution of this field. I don't think it's any different than what happened here in the States once this field became mainstream, once you had the shows like Ghost Hunters and Ghost Adventures, and then it just continued to perpetuate after that.
Yep.
Did you feel an uptick from your side of the globe? Was it in a sense where more and more people were getting involved with it and were curious about it?
For sure. 100%. I mean, once I started, there was, I was in it before I met my wife, and she was in it before she met me, and doing our thing. It was all quiet. No one spoke about it. But once the show started, there was all these groups popping up, and fair enough, everyone was interested, and it gave them, I suppose, the opportunity to see that, hey, people do go out there and do investigations. Let's try it, that sort of thing. So you end up with a lot of groups coming out. Some stay, some don't. Some are around a long time, some aren't, and because once you get out in the field, yourself, it's not glamorous. It's not, it's not really what you see in movies. You know what I mean? It's quite, it can be quite harsh. Like sitting in an old building, at 3 o'clock in the morning when it's really, really hot, or and you stink and you're sweating, or it's really, really cold and you're freezing your butt off. It's not a lot of fun sometimes, but it is what it is. So yeah, look, all these groups come up. And they still are popping up. And my only concern is that with these sort of things, and I suppose for me, it's wanting to keep the field, the level of the field, the level of what happens high, is that a lot of people go out to try, and they start teams when they've only watched TV shows and YouTube channels and things, which is a good way to actually pick up ideas and such. But go and spend some time. Go and find teams that are active, that go on their tours and learn how they do things during the investigation side of things. Get an education, get a base before you try to go into people's places, and do things.
Just like, I think it's like anything else out there in the world. What we see, what we view on social media, what we view on television shows and movies, inspires us in a certain way. You love baseball. Okay, I'm going to go play baseball. Okay, I suck at it. I'm never going to make it to the major leagues, but that's the reality of it. You go into a paranormal investigation and you learn quick enough that you're not always going to have some sort of a miracle event where you either see something, hear something, smell something, feel something, and then you understand that it is more so like watching a soccer game where it's one goal. It's not 5 touchdowns. It's slow,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
but the victory behind that achievement when you capture something
It's
is what
big.
makes
Exactly.
all
I would say it's
worthwhile.
like fishing.
Or
It's like fishing.
exactly.
You can sit there for 5 hours or 6 hours, and you get a nibble, and that's that's your little bit of gold. Your little yeah.
And
And
you hope to land a good one. That's all.
you hope to land a good one. And the other thing is, and I'm not bagging the ghost hunting shows and that, paranormal shows, is that you see them for an hour, say, and everything's crammed into this hour. Now, I've got friends like you guys spoke to, like the Kling brothers and those sort of people. They used to film these things, and they weren't there overnight. They were there for several days, if not a week. So they're cramming all this stuff, that little things that have happened, into 1 hour, and it makes it look very dramatic. So that's what people expect. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So they need to learn that that's not how it works, and as much patience is involved.
Oh, you got to hear from these two again. My God, why is it? Look, you just made Brendan. You just made Brendan's night, Cody. Do you guys?
It is
Bill,
awesome.
do you know Cody and Satori?
I know the names.
They're amazing, yeah. Amazing
Yeah.
people.
So before we go to break here, and I got about 4 minutes, but Brendan, I'll take it to you right now. I'm going to state something that would go in the mind of someone at your age getting into the field, and I want you to tell me whether or not it's true or false. You want to start your own paranormal team. Is that true or
Yes.
false? Okay.
Yeah, once I get more experience, I think. The first event with APS I went to with Bill and Amanda. I went to the Voices of the Dead one, and I went up to meet Bill and Amanda, and yeah, it's just like I wanted just to get into it, like yeah, just get experience with the well-experienced team.
Is this true?
With me, yeah. But Brendan's great. We love Brendan. Brendan's been so loyal to us, and whatever he wants to do, we'll support him in any way, mate.
Thank you.
He knows that. He's just got to tell us what come and ask. We are very approachable. We're really easygoing people, and good people will always help good people. So Brendan knows that, and
yes,
with whatever you want to do, mate, that just let us know and we'll help you out.
Brendan, do you want to encounter
group.
a demon?
I probably wouldn't. No. I'm out looking for people mostly, just for stories, and I just want to get stories from people mostly and just learn a bit from them. I guess that's what I'm in it for. Yeah, just learning mostly because I'm interested. Like I love history and everything like that, so just learning of people who've passed away in the past. Just get their stories and trying to keep them alive, I guess. If I can tell, if it's not private, I can tell others and like keep their story alive and everything. And that's what I'm interested in. Yes.
Bless you for that. Last question before we go to break. Are you going to start your own podcast show?
I'd like to, but yeah, I'd probably get the experience first, but I could try it one day. But I'd love to. Yeah.
You hear that, Ken? Are you listening right now? Brendan wants to bump us from the #1 spot. That's what he's trying to do right now.
No, I'll never. Yeah,
competition.
We're #1.
No.
Yeah. Well, according to Bill, we are. So if there's talks, we got to talk to our producer, find out if there's talks going on behind the scenes with Brendan Muck.
So you're saying Brendan is a mole?
I absolutely do. I absolutely do. I'm going to keep an eye on him. Gentlemen, please stay with us. We're at the top of the hour. We have to go pay some bills, and we'll have Bill and Brendan joining us on the other side with some more questions regarding the paranormal in Australia. And you guys stay with us. We're watching together History in the Making, having these two worlds collide. This is Dead Air Live on the Dead Air Full Spectrum channel. We'll be back just on the other side.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
As UFO reports come in from around the world, the Mutual UFO Network, MUFON, is there. We continue to explore new cases and build our massive database. We share our information with the world in a number of ways. If you'd like to be part of our investigative team, you are always welcome. What could be more exciting than exploring the UFO question firsthand? Join MUFON, find your friends.
You're listening to the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We provide unparalleled coverage of trending news in the world of ufology, cryptozoology, and paranormal phenomenon. Whether you're watching our video live stream or listening to one of our audio programs, you are getting the best from world-renowned researchers and hosts, guiding you through topics the mainstream won't touch. Miss one of your favorite programs? No problem. Head over to the members area at kgradb.com for access to our massive library of award-winning content. Make contact, stay connected, only at kgradb.com.
That's right. Once again, guys, an opportunity to check us out on our Patreon account. These are our Patreon diehards. Again, when we have an opportunity to do our town halls on Monday, it is all about grab bag. If you can get in there early enough, you got a spot. I think we have 10 slots. Ken and I take 2 of those, but we'll switch out so that you guys get a chance to interact and be there with us. Surprise guests from time to time and great topics. And again, it's very candid and very loose feeling, which is important because we want to kind of just let our proverbial hair down.
Yeah, we get to cuss a lot. You get to cuss too. That's the whole attraction of the whole thing.
Where else can you do that? Where else can you do that than Dead Air Paranormal Town Hall?
You can have dinner while you watch us. That's happened before. You can have a glass of wine, or something stronger. Monday nights. That's the place to be.
Yeah. Now, I want to continue our interview with our guests tonight, Bill and Brendan. We're talking about Australia Paranormal Society and paranormal investigating in Australia as a whole. And I wanted to know if you can explain to me, what the hell is this? The Clink brothers?
What in the actual hell is that?
Yeah, they're good. They're good friends of ours. We helped bring them out about 10 years ago, and I promised them that I would bring them out again. And we did that this year. That's the gentleman on the right there in the black is a good mate of mine. He's passed away now, unfortunately. He was an events manager at a location we used to run a lot of tours at, and the gentleman in the middle, he was the guy that made that documentary Australian Skies, which is about aliens and such. It was at a premiere we had at the other gentleman's venue.
So you're wearing multiple hats in the paranormal, then, aren't you?
Oh, we wear a lot of hats, but the Kling brothers, as I said, we helped bring them out 10 years ago. Man, actually, they came out because Amanda said, "Well, I want to bring those guys out." And when we were watching Ghost Lab one day, and contacted our friend Beth over in Sydney, and said, "Beth, you want to bring these guys out?" She said, "Yeah," and she organised that, and we looked after them in Melbourne. She looked after them in Sydney, and then I made a promise. Then we sort of become pretty close, and I said, "I'm going to bring you guys out again." I said, "I don't know when, but it's going to be a while, but I'll get it sorted." And so anyway, I went over there that same year. I got invited over there to go to Gettysburg with them and spend some time in San Antonio and that. And then I think I went again the following year, and we did Gettysburg again. And then I worked on bringing them out, and we brought them out this year. And we had they were only here for I think 10, 11 days. And we did 8 events in that time. So that event there was at a conference center. We had close to 360 people come there, and they did a great presentation for like 2 hours. It was fantastic, and that most of that is they're my team, so we're there. So yeah.
What for a little fodder for our American audience? What locations have you hit here in the States?
Oh, I hit a big one is Gettysburg. I spent last time I was there. I spent nearly a week in Gettysburg.
Beautiful, isn't it?
I love Gettysburg. I've been there. It was my 3rd time, and always had something happen. It was always interesting. So we did Gettysburg, and I've been over to Alcatraz, and we were lucky. We actually got down into the Citadel in the bottom there. Spent some time down in there, and a few places that don't open. We did the Queen Mary. We done investigating on the Queen Mary, and again, we were lucky. We got taken to a few places that weren't open to the public, like the old library and things like that. So we were able to spend some time in there. San Antonio, we stayed in the Menga Hotel, which is, as you know, probably haunted, and we did some there right next to the Alamo, obviously, and a few different places. So we were able to check out a few places as well without actually investigating properly. Eastern State Penitentiary and a few other places. So we sort of traveled around a fair bit, and Amanda fell in love with San Francisco. She actually loved the place.
Yeah.
We were really lucky. We stayed at the Argonaut Hotel, and I asked for a room overlooking, looking towards the water. And you walk in our room, and I'm cutting videos at the moment to put up, and you look straight out the window, and there's Alcatraz right there. So it was brilliant. So yeah.
So near yet so far. Is there one place, Bill, that sticks out in your mind, either for the activity or the aesthetic, that you would jump at the opportunity to go back?
To go back to look, I would. There's so many. we were like in Texas, for example. We were the Kling brothers looked after us there, and they drove us around. Basically, the so many places, mansions, things. I'd love to spend time in all of them.
Yeah,
but if I had
carte blanche at this point in time, the Kling brothers have carte blanche anywhere they go.
Yeah, they're good guys. I mean, what can you say? But if I had a chance, I would love to spend obviously everyone would, but to spend the overnight in Alcatraz. So get rid of everyone and just have the whole place there where we could do what we want. I always will go back to Gettysburg. I love Gettysburg, and We've got some really good friends there. Christina, who runs the what is it? The Ghost Images of Gettysburg. Sorry, my mind's gone blank at the moment. She's her and Mandy are pretty good friends. So it's a great place. But there's so many. Like, you guys have such great places. So such great places.
Last question before I turn it back over to Ken. And this is only this conversation with you, Bill, is to entice Brendan to get here to the States quick enough. Talk about your experiences with the food here in the States.
Oh man, the food, the food, everything's big. Everything's big. And it's, what, the people, I had a great time. People were awesome. Every time I've been there, I've never had an issue with anyone. Everyone's helpful. But the food, man, you got some
Texas
good food.
Barbecue, right?
Barbecue. We did down in Texas. We did the whole, barbecue. We went to a few great places. Everything was good. But Texas, you got to go to Whataburger. That's they're really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to get over there one day for sure. Yeah. Not sure I'll go first, but yeah. Just have to.
Cody and Satari, they're like trolling everybody in here tonight. This is not going to end. It's not going to end well for you guys.
Oh, God.
England's good too.
Do your worst.
Yeah. They're just upset because they lost the game show last week. That's all.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, no, it's but the only thing I would probably say is our beer.
Funny thing, I don't drink, so you know what was the best thing? I took my son over with me about 8 years ago. He's 22 now. I think he was 13 then. And how you refill the drinks? They refill the drinks for free refills. My God, over here you get a cup. That's my son. That's Joey. He come over there and he loved the drink. We get a drink and it's we call it a tumbler, so it's about that big, and you got to pay for every one.
We call it a sample.
And we're getting glasses that are this big, and they keep refilling them. And then he got right into it. He goes, "Can I get a to-go cup?" So he takes the to-go cup with him, and it was fun. It was fun. We had a great time.
Hey, one of the things that I wanted to, because you mentioned it before, Brendan, actually, I give him credit for this. He was talking about having some fun doing this.
Yeah,
and I want to ask you about that because, again, let's go back to the residentials and people who were scared, a little bit of anxiety.
Yep.
I'll tell you how I feel. I think a well-timed joke, appropriate humor, kind of a laid-back thing goes a long way.
Yep.
Because if everybody's on edge and you walk in and you're the calmest guy in the room and sure, I'd love a cup of coffee, let's
Absolutely.
kind of keep it light, like I said, appropriate. You're not poking fun at anybody.
Oh, of course.
But man, that goes a long way to alleviating a lot of stress and working with people.
100%.
Do you find that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm a joker. I love to have a laugh on. I actually last what's today? Last Thursday, I was at a case, and I was having a joke. I was messing around with them. And the lady was a psychologist, and I said, the funny thing, I said, you could write a paper about us, right? I must joke like that. And I said, look, I love to have a laugh, and I said, but when we have to work, when we're doing our actual work, I said, I'm very serious.
Right.
But I love to laugh. And you're right. You walk in there and, they've got enough tension in their life worrying about what's going on. We need to alleviate that. Unfortunately, I'm not sure about you guys. And what I was talking about earlier, we talked about new teams. We talked about people starting new teams. And I several times, probably at least half a dozen times, I've been called out to places because there was teams that had gone in there and actually told these people they have a demon in their house and they have to leave. And recently
Can
I
I
had
tell
one
you?
lady.
Can I tell you what I call that here?
Yeah,
Clean up on aisle 7.
exactly. So you walk, you get these people on the phone in tears to you. I can't afford to move. And I said, look, I'm going to come out. We're going to come out. We're going to have a look. And you walk out there, I had one. The best example was one a couple of years ago. The lady was she was into Wiccan, and she was being affected by something. There was something there, definitely, but it wasn't a demonic entity. What it was is where she lived, there was an old orchard. It's all houses now, and I knew the place. And the gentleman that owned the orchard was a Christian. He didn't like what she was doing, so we just had to settle him down, and everything was all right. But the team that went in previously said to her, "Oh, you've got a demon in your house. You need to move house." And she's crying and saying, "I can't move house." I said, "Well, before we do that, let's go and have a look." That's the sort of thing. You need to help these people. They've got enough stress on them. You can't be going in, and you've got to be really careful what you say. You can't be saying, things like that when they're not substantiated. But you're right. A little bit of humor goes a long way.
Yeah,
absolutely.
The thing is, it's with a lot of people that are doing this. Let's be honest. There are some people who probably don't belong going into homes.
Yep,
you want to go investigate an old factory or something, that's fine.
Yeah, that's different. Exactly.
This is a different dynamic.
Absolutely.
And when you do that, if you introduce fear into a situation, that's a powerful feeling. That's because you can control people
100%
through fear.
100%.
And unfortunately, a lot of people who investigate like that power.
They do, and it's like a stolen valor. They like the attention they get because they're a veteran. When you're in a location, you're helping someone, they love that attention, and unfortunately, they try to get that through being dramatic and which it doesn't help the person. For example, we have a rule that if we're in an investigation and someone maybe sees something or feels something that's negative, we'll never talk about it in front of the client straight away. We will discuss it. Maybe we'll go out to get certain batteries from the car or something, and they will discuss it with me, or something like that. So we don't allow the anything that's going to create fear to be introduced until we discuss it and we work out what we need to do about it. But unfortunately, it's a it can be a bad situation. When people are scared, how are they supposed to live a life that's the way they're supposed to?
Right, absolutely. Wanted to talk to you a little bit about another facet of the paranormal, something that actually, when I was a child, got me involved in all of this, and that was a UFO phenomenon. Yeah, that was the first thing to me that I started reading about, and I said, what is this stuff that's going on? Now, Australia certainly has their share of iconic cases. You have the Westall case, which I think is fascinating. Back in 1966, you have the Freddie Valentic case, which I think is fascinating.
Absolutely. Yep.
And then I think, was it Kelly Collins, the abductee in Melbourne?
Kelly Cahill, yeah. She's literally about 20 minutes away from us where that happened.
No kidding. Is that right? Wow.
Westall's probably half an hour, and a Valentic case happened between us and I think it was King Island he was going to. A matter of fact, of the Valentic case, I remember that as a child. I think I was about 10 years old, and I was stuck in front of the TV watching this. My mother had to actually bring my dinner to the TV because I wouldn't move, watching the reports. But a good friend of mine, a guy called George Simpson, he's just written a book on that, actually, called I think it's called On the Radar. But if anyone's interested, they can send me a message and I'll send you a link. But it's there's so much more information that's come out on that with his research that you'll find it really interesting. The Westall, that's how many witnesses, and then they the army come in and they hushed everything up, and people were told, not to talk about it and things like that. It's really, really, strange. And they actually still have get-togethers with with the kids that are still alive. Yeah.
Want to tell everybody in chat, if I don't know if you guys can see it, but we've got another weird kind of thing happening where comments are just repeating themselves. I don't know. I think that
Oh yeah.
well, ignore that. Move on. But before we do, hey, I got some questions for you guys from the people in chat.
Yep.
So let's go with those. Mary Beth Reimer would like to know, have you been to Adelaide?
Yes.
Yes.
Very
nice city. Yeah.
It's a nice city. It's a pretty city, but we actually took the Klin brothers there and we did 2 events there. So just recently, so it was fun. Yeah, at the Adelaide jail.
Yeah, everything it's made out to be, or
we had actually some interesting experiences at the jail there while we were there with them, and the full house. There was everyone was there was a one of them was a shadow person across the jail cell. We all were looking that way. We were all focusing that way when it crossed. Curtains were moving, and where there was no open windows or breeze and things like that. So yeah, as much as you can experience with a big group of people.
right.
Yeah.
Well, you know how it is. I mean, I've been to Eastern State, and it was well, I mean, there were a couple of things that got our attention, but not on the level that, and I don't doubt people have had experiences there,
No,
but you
absolutely.
guys know how it is. You go in there for 5 or 6 hours and expect to experience everything that everybody has in there for the last 150 years. It's not feasible.
No, 100%.
Sandy Andrews has a question. When you try to help spirits cross over, do you find that sometimes you can just let them know it's okay to go, and then they do?
100%. I actually have a really well. One of the things we do is I always tell the people, if they, I could say to them, you can just sit down. Actually, I did it just recently with someone. I said, you can just sit down and talk to them. And say to them that they can cross over anytime they want. If they need help, just ask for help, etc. Before we do anything. But I one of the best stories I have was I had a medium with me, not one I work with regularly. We went into a house. 2 old sisters were living in this house, and they said they were experiencing things. And I had the medium walk around and see what he felt. And he picked the back room. There was an old lady sitting on the bed, and she was like confused. She didn't know what was. This is in spirit. He goes, "There's an old lady back there. She's confused. She has trouble walking." And so I took one of my guys in there, and he was quite new at the time. And we walked in, and we shut the door, and the medium was out talking to the clients. And I thought I'm going to try something here. And I said, and I started speaking, and I said to her, sweetheart, you don't need to be here. You need to cross over and go with your family. If you ask them to come and help you, they'll help you. And I thought, what's this noise? There was this noise, and I went, it's like scales of music, like this. And I thought, that's really weird. And then it went down. Oh, and I thought, what the hell was that? And I didn't say anything. And I went out and I said to the medium, can you go and just check that back room and tell me a bit more about the old lady? And he walked in there and he goes, she's not there anymore. Right. So she crossed over, and I didn't know what this sound was. And so I done a bit of research, and I spoke to a few people, and a couple of them said what they thought might have happened is that it opened for her to cross, and that's what the sound was. And I thought that's quite possible, because that's what it sounded like. It sounded like scaling, like opening, But it was quite funny, because I didn't tell him that we tried to move her on, and when he went in there, she said she's not there anymore. She's gone. So, yeah.
Conundrum with that. See what you guys think about this. I've often thought when people say, get them out of here, I want them banished, or and it's not something that I personally do. I could probably call on someone because we're mostly documentarians. But anyway,
No, I get that. I get that.
Sometimes I have this feeling: who the hell are we to tell somebody to leave?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Now,
No, I get that.
I understand if there's, but first of all, there has to be some type of communication. Are you lost?
Yeah.
Are you trapped? Are you in distress
100%.
somehow? If you're not in distress and you're just coming in visitation, you don't mean anybody any harm, but sometimes your presence is noticed. I'm not sure that it's ethical or moral to go in there and just say, get out of here.
100%. No, I agree with you. And what we do, the way I do things, because it's done on a spiritual level, but it's also done. I have my own techniques that I use on a spiritual level. Plus, we use other things. We use smudge sticks and we use prayer, or we use whatever. But it's all done on a spiritual level. Now, the way I believe and the way I found it to work is that anything that's negative, it will push anything that's negative out. And this is how I explain it to the client as well. But it's not going to stop. If there's spirits that are here that are family, they don't mean you harm, they mean that there's nothing negative, they're not going to go. It's only going to remove negative. That's the intention. So I understand what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying. We don't have the right to move people on, and we shouldn't unless we feel that they do need to move over for some reason. As I said, negative. They're causing harm to the person. They're ruining their life. So we need to move them off. And again, as I said, what we do, I believe, will only remove the negative. It doesn't stop old Auntie Mary coming and visiting. Because I do it at my house. I have family members that come and visit, and rarely we get something negative, but now and then something will pop up because we keep our barriers up. But now and then we'll get one sneak through, and we'll have to do a cleanse and get rid of it. But nothing. We don't remove, or we don't do anything that's going to remove spirits that aren't negative. So, as I said, family members, friends, whatever. Yeah. That's the way we work, whether everyone's the same.
Brendan, do you believe that people just have to get used to the idea that in some cases they have to cohabitate with the spirits, accept their presence? And I'm talking something that's benevolent. I'm not talking about something negative, but these little odd things, your keys end up somewhere else. Maybe someone's just trying to get your attention or be playful or let you know they're there. Do you think that people just have to understand that there are times that spirit is around us and that we have to coexist at some point?
Yes. Yeah. For me, I'm sort of open to people coming through, and if something moves in my house or something, I won't totally freak out and go, "Oh, it's something negative," or anything. I just think it's just somebody visiting. Unless I start getting nasty feelings coming through, but that hasn't happened to me. It happens more with living people, like if someone comes past me.
That's true.
Absolutely.
But usually my interactions with the spirits, like talking and communicating with them, they've always felt good. The ones that I've been talking to. So sometimes they would swear or something, but I think it's just like them just like being grumpy people and not being nice. But personal interactions with me, they've always been pretty good so far. And I felt like nice when I felt calm when it's happened. So yeah. And with Bill, I did the human pendulum rocking backwards and forwards. Like, yeah, that was the first time I went. Then that was one of the first times I actually had spirits like moving me.
Hmm.
Yeah, and that was amazing, and it
Oh,
worked really well.
The human,
Human
pendulum.
pendulum. Yes.
Yeah, it's
Hello.
we incorporate. It's actually from this. It's an exercise from the spiritualist movement back at the mid 1800s. I have a friend of mine in the UK. They do a lot of that sort of stuff, like table tipping and things like that. And this exercise, it's pretty full on. It's I've had people non-believers and they go, we do this exercise and they can't believe what they feel. You know what I mean? It's amazing. It is amazing that there are these exercises, but that you do feel an interaction with spirit. That's basically it. So,
for all of you out there in chat who are like, what in the hell are you talking about?
I always tell people we're going to hang them from the roof and swing them. But basically what it is the person there in the middle, as you can see, he's got one person in front, one person in back. And that's only to stop him falling over. So what he does is he shuts his eyes and we ask the spirits which direction is yes, which direction is no. And then once we work out what that is, we can ask yes, no questions. So it's an interesting interaction.
Yeah, it is. And
people say I couldn't control it.
If Cody's still out there, he knows that we did this at a place called Smith's Castle. Except I had this 5'2" girl on one side and a 6'8" gentleman who volunteered to be the pendulum, and we feared for her life. Before I bring George back, last thing I want to cover, the dreaded D word, as in demonic. Now, Bill, as an investigator, and you've been around this, I've been around this a long time. You've been around the human pendulum. You've been around this a long time, and so have I. The landscape has changed. Fear sells, the demonic sells. Is it frustrating to you when you get calls from people who have self-diagnosed themselves and say, come quick, I have a demon, and you have to kind of talk them off that ledge and say, hang on, I'm willing to come out to do an assessment, but because of what they see and read and what they're exposed to on social media and so forth, people have a tendency to jump that shark.
100%.
And is this, in your decades of doing this, it's changed a lot. How frustrating, if at all, is that?
Oh, absolutely frustrating. I always say Hollywood has a lot to answer for, because Hollywood, or their movies designed to entertain, to scare you, to give you that thrill. And unfortunately, when people watch them, they think they're real. You know what I mean? And people, human nature is, what we don't understand, we fear. And when we fear, we imagine the worst. I heard a growling. It doesn't mean it's demonic. You know what I mean? And again, like you said, we need to, we'll talk to them and we'll say, look, we'll come and do an assessment and we'll have a look. And, then we can reassure them that it's, it's not a demonic entity and it's whatever, but it's unfortunately, yes, social media, the internet, Hollywood has created an environment where people would always jump to the worst. Well, it's human nature to jump to the worst case scenario anyway, but in this case, they always jump to it's a demon. And I probably 1 out of 3 cases, I'll have someone say that to me. I think I have a demon, or there's something evil here, and it's could be old Auntie Mary, and you're just scared because you don't understand what's going on. You know what I mean? And that's human nature, and it's understandable. But unfortunately, I have seen that increase.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm.
I've always said it's easier to take people from 0 to 60 than it is from 60 to 0.
To talk them down.
And kind of talk them down a little bit. Because let's face it, when we were kids, occasionally there would be a book or a TV show, but the delivery system is different now.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
inundated with all this information, which can be a great thing. with all the things we see on TV, it makes this a less taboo subject to discuss.
100%.
But on the other hand, it gives unrealistic expectations of what it is we do.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And that's the thing, you know, that's they see the shows as you know, and someone just said on these shows everything is negative, and it's not, you know, it's not always negative. It's, you know, a matter of fact, it's, you know, you're more likely to come across that it's a family member and it's a misunderstanding, you know, it's a misinterpretation of what's happening. And, you know, I found this actually going through through COVID when we had the lockdowns and all that sort of stuff. You know, it's you know, people were home, they were experiencing more because people that are normally out running around or doing that sort of, you know, busy all the time, weren't experiencing or seeing what was going on in their home. So when they're stuck home 24 hours a day, they were noticing more, and it was creating fear. But, you know, a lot of the time it was not anything to be feared, and it was you know, it just needed to, again, just talk them down, you know, get them to understand that, you know, you're now realizing because you're home more, something that's been there all the time and it's done you no harm. You know, it's done you no harm.
Yeah. Demons everywhere. Stop that, you donkeys. You donkey.
That's right.
Stop that. All right. I'm going to disappear. Bring George back in here. Thanks, gentlemen. We'll be back to say goodbye.
Thanks, Ken.
Yeah, I can honestly say, and you're talking about two different ends of the spectrum with the two gentlemen that we have on screen with me tonight. And regards to social media, I don't know how much time you spend on social media, Bill, but I can pretty much guarantee that if you've been on any of these mainstream media such as Twitter or TikTok, it's different for you and I as seasoned investigators when we see these paranormal posts.
Yeah.
Because we know right off the bat when they're showing, you know, something like a ghost girl behind a real girl, and you run up and and it's like, you know, that's just really, really good editing. But
yes,
if
exactly.
that were something we experienced in a field, holy shit, we'd be losing our mind.
Absolutely.
We hope that would happen, but that's not the case. Whereas, and not using Brendan as the individual, but that age bracket, seeing that same thing is either going to grab that interest and I'm going to get into this field, or I am never going near it.
It's going to scare you. Yeah, exactly. And there's
those
a
questions come up with you, I bet, too, right?
Oh, they do. I mean, you know, people, like you said, you know, the ghost girl behind someone will see that and they, you know, they believe, oh, there's, you know, that's a real photo. Everything's a real photo. And then, like an example, I had a client just the other day. Someone sent me some photos and was telling me how they experienced this, and they sent me a photo of, and the taboo word, some orbs, but they were green orbs, and I knew that was lens flare, right? So you had the sun up above, and then you had these couple of green anomalies. And I said, we were talking about something else, and then she sent me that, and I said, well, can I tell you my belief from my point of view, as an experience point of view? And she said, don't tell me it's not spirits. I know it is. I don't want to hear it. I went, okay, believe what you want, you know. So unfortunately, sometimes people will, they have their mind set and they don't want to understand that, you know, not everything you see is paranormal.
It's so funny that we are on opposite sides of this earth, and it is the same thing.
Same issues.
Because I went through the same thing. I mean, way early on. We're talking about 2008, 2009, and someone would send me the photo, and I'd say, "Well, and I explain it to them. Well, I still think it's my grandma, and from that point on, I'm like, yeah, it's an orb. I'm sure it's a spirit. Absolutely, go for it."
I can tell you even a better one. I had a lady send me a photo with what it was from, you know, one of those ghost apps where you can put ghosts in the photos.
Oh, sure.
So there was one, and I remember it was a little girl, and I knew it was, you know, what's going to happen. I actually had a bank of these apps, and I would go and I took a screenshot and I put it next to, and it was exactly the same. And I sent it to her and I said, look, unfortunately, whoever gave you this photo is having a go at you, setting you up. I said, it's actually from a ghost app, and this is the app. And they were twins. And her response to me was, I thought you'd be more open-minded. So, yeah, it doesn't matter. If people want to believe, they'll believe. If they want to actually listen, they'll listen. But you're always going to get ones that don't.
But here's my philosophy, my thought process behind it as well. It's like those who come into this field based upon what they've seen on television shows, what they've seen in movies. You'll learn. You will learn.
Oh, yeah.
You'll learn from your mistakes. We did our orb pictures back in the day, and and phantom smells that we didn't understand. That was explained by sun going through a window, hitting a fabric, and it's going to create that or mimic that smell.
Yep.
Whether it's cigar smoke, cigarette smoke, all those different things that come up.
Yep.
You learn.
You do.
As you go through this.
The orbs especially. I mean, for me, 99.9% of orbs are dust or some sort of contaminant. But having said that, I have, with my own eyes, actually seen orbs. I've watched them.
Yes. Dark orbs for me, though.
For sure. They come out of jail cells, move along walkways, go into other cells. I've seen them, and they've come between my legs. And these are bright. Well, this one between my legs, for example, was bright white. The ones in the jail cells, there was a red and there was a black orb. And, there's a big story. There's another big story, but that's just time-wise. But, I believe that they can happen. But, whether they're energy or whether they're spirit is another question. Or just energy and not spirit, if you understand what I'm saying. But most of the time, they are just natural contaminants.
Brendan, from the perspective of your age, and I want to get into paranormal drama in just a second, but when you are engaged in social media, again, I think you're mature beyond your years only because you stayed open-minded. You went to great sources such as Bill and of course our show, but it was able to give you a little bit more of an education behind this. But when you're talking to your peers about this, or there are posts out there, you comment and you see some of the other comments, are you seeing like-minded in your age group individuals such as yourself, or do you still see a lot of immaturity in the way that they're approaching it?
It's sort of because there's more known about it, I guess. There's a lot of really good comments, but occasionally you get probably 25% probably, and they say, it's a demon, or you have to get rid of it, or something like that. It's like, you don't know. Like,
Jack Bacon's wannabes,
yeah. And it's good to have really good education, like from Bill's group that I've joined, joined a few of their events and all that, and the shows like Dead Air and watching before I was watching Andrea Perrin and Nick Groff, but just building like learning from all of those people, and Cody and Satori, how they speak to the spirits, and a lot of good people learn off. And Dead Air I started watching probably 3 or 4 years ago. So them with Bill's group, and Amanda's group, I think there was 2 years ago that I met them at the first event I attended. So I was asking a few questions and wanted to know more, and went on the next couple of investigations, and amazing how they run them, and just to learn. And I got to ask questions, and now I learn a bit more, and I'll continue to learn over my time, I guess.
Right, but you probably were the first to discover, because you're in another land, another country, but you're
Yes.
watching a lot of the shows from here, that there's
Yes.
not too many dissimilarities between and as far as the thought processes to what Bill and his team is doing and Ken and Rise Up is doing. They're very, very similar, aren't they? How strange is
Yes,
that? That's
definitely.
incredible.
No, very similar. Like, you're down to earth, and when something's not right, then you say it's not right. Then, but your approach, like, Rise Up and all that, go in and approach is amazing, and Cody Satori's approach is amazing, and Andrea is too, and Bill's group, like, they're amazing how they approach things. Like, I see a lot of mostly younger people on YouTube, and I'd have to just turn I don't know, depending on the heading, and like if they're shouting and making a lot of noise and everything, I'm just like, no, just turn it off. So,
Or you see them on there, it drives me nuts. I'll go to see a live investigation on social media, and they're like, guys, if you get us to 100,000 likes, then we'll start doing a Ouija
click
board.
off. Yeah.
Goodbye.
Oh God. Yeah.
No.
Push that. Let's talk. We got about 10 minutes left here. Let's talk real quick about the drama in the field. I would imagine, Bill, able to follow much of the drama that goes on here.
Yeah, and we have our own drama as well here. Don't worry about that. It's I think it's everywhere.
Well, I heard each of the cities are very competitive. Melbourne and Sydney are very competitive. Is that correct?
They can be, I suppose. I'm lucky. I pretty much get on with most people. Queensland, Sydney, WA, South Australia. So I'm lucky. I mean, I'll talk to anyone, and I'll work with people that the good people in those areas. But there are also groups that I wouldn't work with, or people I wouldn't work with, because I've seen what they do, and I've seen how they work, or they've we've been attacked. We have stalkers that try to make trouble on our pages and things, and we just have to deal with that. We don't argue. We just block and delete and do that sort of stuff, report them, that sort of stuff. We don't sort of get into a shouting competition. No, it's not worth it. We've got a good reputation, and it's taken us a long time to build that. And unfortunately, there's people that are always going to be negative, always going to who love drama and who love to argue and cause trouble. And that's not what we do, and it's not what we enjoy. You're a good person, and I don't care who you are, I'll work with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, all of that detracts from what your work is. It really does.
It's horrible. I mean, it's a horrible. We have, like, Amanda's got there's three that follow her constantly one of them for the last probably 6 years, and she comes back now and then and just causes so much drama, or tries to, and they make false accounts, and they just cause a lot of issues that we just don't need. Yeah, someone just said I'm very easygoing, and that's the thing. We are. We're good people. We'll help anyone. Brendan knows that, and unfortunately, people they get they get fixated, and it's not just here. I've seen it in the States, and I've seen and they get fixated and just want to cause problems. Just go off, do your own thing, dude. Create your own world, create your own. Have a go at something. If it doesn't work, try something else. Hey, that's what we do.
Yeah,
live your own life.
I call it the "look at me" syndrome. I need that
absolutely,
yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've seen what's been going on over there in the States, and I don't envy anyone going through that on either side. It's horrible, but it does happen everywhere. Here in the UK, I've seen it in the UK. I've got friends over there. I've seen it, I've seen it everywhere. And the people talk of paranormal unity. I don't believe in that. There can be that unity for everyone, simply because people's personalities are different. But I believe we should be able to just work on our own, and our own groups or our own people, and not be harassed. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think if you want to have a proper discussion with someone about something, have a discussion like an adult. Not, don't resort to, when people don't see your way, don't resort to attacking them, or don't resort to trying to destroy them. It's just stupid, really.
No need for sophomoric tactics. I mean, we're just being adult. That's all there is to it.
Exactly. We're adults.
Real quick, tell me about this place.
Oh, Aradale Asylum. I was speaking about that earlier. That was the biggest asylum in the Southern Hemisphere. It had 63 buildings at one stage. It has about 13,000 deaths. Good and bad things happen there. In the old days, mainly bad. The place is amazing. I've spent many a weekend locked in there, and not as a patient.
Yet.
Great. It's a great location. I actually have. I wrote a book on it, to be honest. Actually, and
I've got it here. Just getting it.
Brendan's got it. And
minds think alike. Look at that.
That's the one, and that's the stories basically of us when we were in there, and also some of the people that come with us. Like the gentleman that done the forward there, Nathaniel. He is the guy that runs the tours there, and does a great job. He knows his stuff about how to run a tour and how to the history and all that sort of stuff. So, but it's a great location. If you ever get over to our side of the world, we'll organise to get you down there.
And tell real quick, final thing. Tell us about what's going on here, in case anybody decides tomorrow they want to hop on a plane to Australia.
Well, that's Bundoora Park Farm. Brendan's been there a few times.
Yes.
And what it is, it's a big park in Melbourne, and it was part of a big homestead where they had they used to breed racehorses. But the bigger aspect, it was also a military encampment. It was there's big Aboriginal history to it, early settlement, farming and such, It has the original what we call groom's cottage, plus it also has a church that's been brought in there and a school that's been brought in there. Just a small country school and a small country church to make it into like a little village. And there is some activity there. It's quite a bit of activity actually. And across the road from there, we have another asylum called Larundel Asylum, and we actually get quite a bit of energy coming from there across into the park and into our into that village there. So it's a good place for people to start investigating. But we've investigated for many years there, and always getting something different. As I said, you've got the military history, you've got the horse racing, you've got the Aboriginal history. A few people have died there, as in drowned in the creek. There's things that are attached to the church and the school that we pick up on. So it's a great little place. Yeah.
And $62.50 per person. What's the exchange rate on that?
I think you're probably looking at about $40, $39, something like that.
That's a steal. That's a steal.
It's a 3-hour investigation.
Yeah, try getting into one of those locations here. You're looking at $150 minimum.
Yeah, but the thing is, even there, when you've got to pay the location as well. You have to, and my stuff, like sometimes I have Tony, one of my guys, actually runs that, and I come there. Sometimes, a couple of times. Sometimes he's on his own, and I pay the guys that run it. So that's their time and their petrol, and so. What people don't see is that covers those things plus insurances and everything else. So yeah, it's like any business. You have costs that you need to cover. So
Ken DaCosta, Ken, what do you think about the next time Bill comes to the States, rather than Texas and the Kling brothers, he comes to New England?
I think that would be a splendid idea.
Bring Brendan with him, right? Him and Brendan.
We'll drag Brendan with us.
That would be amazing. I have to have to save up a bit, and hopefully next time. Yeah.
I'll make it like one of those
Thank
FBI prisoner exchanges. I'll put a handcuff on him and make him get on the plane with me.
Throw me in the suitcase. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Any
Come on,
port in
go
the
on.
storm, guys. Any port in the
That's it.
storm.
That's it, buddy.
Yeah, I can tell you guys that this, again, as usual, flew by the 2 hours. There's
did.
a lot to talk about, and we are going to put a proposal out there for you right now. I know we're out of time, Bill. Just hang in tight for a second. If we go
I'm
over,
good.
I'll let you know. No, I'm talking about producer Bill.
Oh, the other Bill. Sorry. Whoop.
He gets panicky. But we are going to put this offer out there, and I don't know how exactly this would work, but if you're ever going to be doing a midday paranormal investigation on a Sunday, we would love to stream that right here on the show with you sometime.
Midday on a Sunday for you guys would be.
Well, today's Monday for you right now, isn't it?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we'll work at a time. It'll probably be early Monday morning.
Yeah.
Let me see what we can do.
Fair enough.
Hey, I can stay up in all hours of the night watching the World Cup. I'd watch this.
Oh yeah.
Amen.
Okay.
All right.
Amen.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. For those of you in the chat, I apologize, whatever these glitches were tonight. I promise you we will get that corrected. Bill Forte will be working on that. I'm sure Ken will make some phone calls, get some people fired. So we'll make sure we take care of that
Immediately.
Yeah. Bill, Brendan, stay with us. Don't hang up just yet. But thank you guys so much for watching us. Our town hall members, we'll see you guys tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Those of you who want to join us, make sure Dead Air Paranormal on Patreon. Until then, have a great night. We'll see you next week. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody, and take care.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.
I see her rolling up, Uber black Cadillac, high heel boots and a sexy body full of tats. Baby's bad, oh baby's hella bad. After her there ain't no coming back. Wanna take a run at that. I think she's feeling me, turn it up a few degrees. My imagination of her body gets the best of me. Oh gosh, she's such a tease, bitten lips.